Welcome to Fascinating Fly.
Glad to be here.
Today we're jumping straight into the incredible world of Norse mythology.
Right. Looking specifically at where these narratives come from, the origins.
Exactly. And the key sort of structures and figures we find in the actual source material.
Which means the Eddas and the Icelandic sagas, primarily.
That's our focus today, just unpacking what these foundational texts actually tell us.
And, right away the sources themselves are kind of interesting.
How so?
Well, we're mostly talking about the Poetic Edda. That's the older stuff, anonymous songs, poems.
Right, the really old layers.
And then the Prose Edda, which was put together by Snorri Sturluson. This was, 13th century?
Yeah, and that's a really crucial detail the sources themselves highlight, isn't it? Snorri's timing and background.
Absolutely. Because he was writing from a Christian perspective, centuries after these myths were, a living religion.
So how might that have shaped his telling of it all?
Well, it just means we're probably not getting a completely unfiltered picture.
He might have reinterpreted things.
Could be. Maybe presenting the gods more like ancient heroes or historical figures, making them fit his time, maybe making them less pagan, more acceptable.
So it adds this whole layer of interpretation we need to keep in mind.
Definitely. But even with that potential filter, these texts, they paint this amazing picture of a very unique cosmos.
And what a cosmos it is. The sources talk about 9 worlds, right? All linked.
You've got Asgard, home of the main gods, the Aesir, like Odin and Thor.
In Midgard, that's us, the human world.
And places like Jotunheim, the land of the giants.
And holding it all together, this giant tree.
Yggdrasil, the world tree, a huge ash tree. It's described as the absolute center, its roots and branches connecting and supporting all these realms, like the spine of the universe almost.
Wow. And didn't the sources mention a bridge, too? Between the gods and humans?
That's Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, another really potent image from the texts.
Always watched over by Heimdall, the super vigilant god guarding the border.
Exactly. So it's this connected but also kind of tense universe filled with these incredible figures. Maybe start with Odin.
Oh, okay, Odin, the Allfather. The sources portray him as just so complex, god of war, yeah, but also poetry, death, wisdom.
And his whole quest for wisdom is fascinating, the lengths he goes to.
Like giving up an eye just for a drink from Mimir's well, for knowledge.
Or hanging himself on Yggdrasil for 9 nights to learn the runes. It shows how much wisdom was valued, the sacrifices required.
And he gets half the warriors who die bravely in battle, right? In Valhalla.
That's the one. Now, contrast him with someone like Thor.
Thor's much more direct in the stories, isn't he? Less plotting, more hitting things.
Yeah, he's kind of the muscle, the protector. His job is guarding Asgard and Midgard, mostly from giants and chaos with that famous hammer, Mjolnir.
Which comes back to him, the texts say.
Like a boomerang, yeah. He's thunder, strength, order. Maybe not always the most cunning, but definitely brave.
And then there's the complete opposite, Loki.
Loki. Always the agent of chaos, it seems.
Technically a giant, but lives with the Aesir gods.
Right. He's the trickster, the shapeshifter. Sometimes his cleverness helps the gods out of a jam.
But just as often, he's the cause of the jam. Driven by what? Envy? Just mischief?
Hard to say sometimes. Maybe just a desire to shake things up. He's definitely a catalyst for change, often destructive change.
You mentioned giants, Jotuns. The sources make it clear they aren't just, big, dumb villains.
No, not at all. The name Jotun might mean devourer, which hints at their role. They represent these ancient primordial forces, sometimes chaotic, sometimes wise.
And not always physically giant either. And gods like Odin have Jotun ancestry.
Exactly. They're powerful beings, different clans. They interact constantly with the gods, sometimes fighting, sometimes, complicated relationships, even marriage.
So this whole setup, gods with very human flaws, these ancient forces, everything connected but tense. And the sources say it's all heading towards one big event.
That's the shadow hanging over everything. Destiny, fate, it all moves towards Ragnarök.
The fate of the gods, the end of the world.
Pretty much. A final cataclysmic battle. The prophecies even detail the matchups, like Odin fighting the giant wolf Fenrir.
Who's Loki's son, right?
And Thor battles the world serpent, Jormungandr, another of Loki's children. Most gods and giants die. It's destruction on a cosmic scale.
But is that the absolute end?
Interestingly, the sources also hint at a rebirth, a new world emerging from the ashes. So maybe it's cyclical, not just final.
And this idea of inescapable fate woven by the Norns, beings even Odin couldn't control, what does that tell us about the worldview in these texts?
It suggests that what mattered wasn't if you met your fate, but how. With courage, honor, seeking renown. They clearly valued strength, yes, but also wisdom, loyalty, keeping your word, community.
So these stories, they weren't just myths, they were explaining the world. Sun and moon chased by wolves, a rainbow bridge.
They gave meaning. Meaning to the cosmos, to struggle, life, and that inevitable end.
And it does leave you thinking, something from the sources. If these gods, powerful but flawed, knew their end was coming at Ragnarok.
What value did they find in just existing, knowing even divinity wasn't permanent?
Something to keep thinking about.
Definitely.
Until next time.